Today's guest, Tom Watson, has had a recent ADHD diagnosis. While he has spent time putting organisational strategies in place at home to create order, things are about to get turned upside down when he moves home. In today's podcast, Tom is the one asking the questions about how to navigate through this, and I'm going to do my best to answer them.
You're listening to the Declutter Hub podcast, bringing you tried and tested, no-nonsense tips and advice from the leading experts in decluttering and organising your home. Now here's your host, Leslie Spellman.
Hello and welcome listeners to episode 203. I'm Leslie. If you're new to the Declutter Hub podcast, you're so welcome. What you'll find here is reality, empathy, and advice by the bucket load. Some of you will binge the podcast and others will take your time, but our aim is that you learn, be motivated, and become excited to start or continue your decluttering journey with our podcast in your ear along the way. Now, again, I'm very excited. In podcast 196, I really hope that you've listened to that already. We talked to Tom Watson about his inspirational weight loss journey, where he reversed his type 2 diabetes and shed a whopping 8 stone. That's 112 pounds or 51 kilos. Can you actually believe it? He also shared the fact that he had had a recent ADHD diagnosis, which has made him rethink the way he manages himself, his home, and his life. It's a brilliant podcast. If you've not listened already, do go back because there's some absolute gems in there, which is going to make you think about the parallels between decluttering and weight loss. Now, when we first chatted to Tom about being a guest on the podcast, he had loads of questions about how he would be able to manage an upcoming house move and renovation. So today we're going to do something different. Tom is going to be asking the questions and I'm going to try and help him navigate through his impending upheaval. I'm a bit nervous, Tom. I don't know whether I want to be the interviewee.
Well, I think I'm the one that should be nervous because I'm going to ask you all these questions and I've got a hunch you're going to tell me off for being very disorganized.
Oh, never. I'm just hoping that I'm going to be able to understand this is a thing. I've never, when we do our Q&As, we always do a little bit of prep just to make sure we're not taken off guard. This is like a kind of, quick fire round for me, isn't it? And I feel like I need my partner in crime here to answer some of the questions. It's just me.
Okay. Well, let's give it a go, Leslie. But can I describe my circumstances to you? Right?
Of course. I'm
a recovering politician. I have ADHD. I'm not naturally organised. And 3 years ago, I agreed with my partner that we would begin to renovate a very old house. And we've already done it wrong. We've got all the planning permission. We've had to move out because it's going to be rewired and replumbed and a massive piece of work. And we've decluttered a lot of things. We've given a lot of things to charity shops, but I'm sure that some of the things we've already put into storage should have been decluttered out before it went into storage. So we're kind of sort of starting afresh, which is good, but there's still some things we need to move in, right? And I'm thinking of all the things that do my head in that current house now. And I'm going to start in order of the things that cause me the most stress. And I'm going to have advice, okay? How do I manage coats, jackets, shoes, and trainers? And what's the best way to have a system to store them?
Right. Well, it's going to be, so first things first, I think it's really interesting what you're going through because it's a fantastic opportunity. And it's also the thing that started me off as a professional organizer. So 14 years ago, I think it was 14 years ago, the house that I live in at the moment was a derelict, it's kind of 4-bedroom Victorian, it's not actually, it's 5 bedrooms, Victorian property. And we renovated it from scratch. Same thing as you're doing, electricals. We moved out, was a year renovation. And the nice thing about that was it gives you the opportunity to go all the way back to first principles and make it perfect. Now, I think the difference perhaps between you and I was that I had had the same, the family. So are you moving in for the first time with your girlfriend or did you live together before?
My partner's got 3 kids
right.
And they've all got Wi-Fi demands and plug demands and games consoles, books and clothes.
Okay. And so did you come from a property before together? So you know how the family
No,
operates?
we're doing it for the first time. And
Okay.
I've got 2 kids that are going to be staying with us as well every so often. So it's a big family negotiation, moderation. Just getting the kids to move out of the house, ready for the renovation, was stressful. Although they're really pleased because the only thing they want is more plug sockets in their bedrooms. As you can imagine, that's the kind of the modern currency for kids. As long as they can get good broadband so they can play their video games.
And what age are the kids, Tom?
They're all in their teens, various
Okay.
levels. But one of them's in his early 20s and will probably be at university by the time the house is done. And all the other 4 are in their teens.
And you're, sorry, asking loads of questions now. I'm asking all the questions again, because it's important to me to kind of work out what the house is like. So is it a big property? Is it a small property?
It's a 3-bedroomed end of terrace Georgian with quite high roofs, quite big rooms, you can imagine. And we're hopefully going into the roof. So there's a new staircase going in. And it's a bit higgledy-piggledy because it's been knocked around over the years, but hopefully it's going to have a bigger kitchen and it's going to have some space downstairs that you could call a utility room where you can do all your washing and your ironing. And that's one of my questions, Leslie, to get there, because at the moment there's no organisation of any of that either. And
I think you've identified already a couple of problem areas there. So you've thought about coats, shoes. Obviously, you're out, you're active. Presumably, the rest of the family are active as well. So that's going to be important. That's going to be a non-negotiable. So that needs to fit in somewhere. The problem that we get sometimes when we do renovations, when we get kitchen designers in, when we get bathroom designers in, wardrobe designers, is that it's all about the aesthetic and it's not about taking things back to basics. And so, first of all, we need to identify, right, okay, let's be realistic now. And let's, whether this is a kitchen, a bedroom, a utility room, whatever that is, what do we actually need? Let's be realistic about what we've got already. Now, you put your stuff into storage, which makes it a little bit more difficult because ideally this would have been done before your stuff got in storage. But you and your partner together will be able to work out, right, how many shoes have we got that need to be by the front door? So the coats and shoes and things that you're talking about are not the ones that are stored in bedrooms. Presumably they're the kind of outdoor everyday shoes and coats that need to be by the back door for you to be able to go out. Yeah. So in this house, I definitely put, I have got space in here. So I definitely had a whole run of coat cupboards for and in there I've got ski jackets, outdoor jackets, not jackets that I would wear if I was going out on a Saturday night and things like that, but more outdoorsy kind of jackets. I have shoe racks as well. I think the key is to keep it simple. You have to think about, how is that system going to be maintained? So it's not about making something that looks amazing. It's about making something that is very, very functional, easy to manage for the whole family. So that might be as simple as little big sort of trugs, those kind of round, flexible containers where you can just chuck all the trainers in. It might be as simple as that. If, what's your partner like? Is she organised, or is she someone that's going to tidy up after the rest of the family? Or
she is organised but very busy. She's got a big job, so time is always a problem with us. And the kids, the kids are at college, they're doing their work, they've got part-time jobs, they're out and about. So we're up against it on organisation and time, I would say.
Yeah, so I think, right, okay, so that everything needs to be as simple as it possibly can be and as manageable as it can be. We can't have little tiny cubby holes for all these different shoes that are going to involve pairing things up and putting them in. Let's keep it simple. Is the shoe storage going to be somewhere where it's kind of hidden from the hallway, or have you got a room that you can put it that's almost like a boot room type thing?
We think we could at the back, if we come in the back of the house, there's a space that we could create as a kind of boot and coat room. And at the moment it's all at the front, so you walk in the house and you're confronted by all sorts of outdoor wear and muddy boots from walks in woods and trendy trainers from very fashionable teenagers, and they're all in a jumble.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I talk about how I created this sort of coat room because I had all these ideas. I was like, okay, everyone's going to come through the back door and then they're going to drop their coats and their shoes in my kind of utility room, and then they're going to come into the kitchen. Do they do that? No, they come in the front door and they drop their stuff, not in the coat room, not in the shoe room. So what that then coat room and shoe room becomes is more of a storage area for keeping things for when we're going to take them out. And somebody, normally me, then is the one that every week, and I do that in my weekly reset. So on a weekend, I'll take the stuff from, there's trainers on a kind of coat stand in the hallway, but not too many. I won't allow it to sort of build up too much. So there will be coats and shoes in the hallway, but it's not all of the coats and shoes. And it's the same principle as when you're past the toy era. Same principle with toy rooms. It always sounds a fantastic idea to have a playroom with all these toys and the kids are going to play in there. Well, they're not. They're going to play in the kitchen or the living room where the parents and the siblings are. And but sometimes it's great to have that storage area so you've got a place for it. It might not go into that place at the time that you want it to, but it's got an opportunity to be put away, and that's the important thing. So keep it simple, try and keep it out of sight if you can, for the most part, and know that it might not quite work out the way that you want it to if you've got teenagers at home. That would be my advice.
That's good advice. So get a boot room and change the teenagers. That's probably the right.
Yeah, advice. Probably. Yeah, that's also possible, but a bit more difficult to manage.
Okay, this is the next one. We are in the fortunate position that we're going to pick a new kitchen.
Okay.
We both love cooking. My partner has lots of baking and sort of preparation aids, some of which have been passed down from grandparents. So they're rarely used, but occasionally used. And right now, we haven't got enough space for it all, but we're hoping to get a kitchen where it can all find a place. How do you start off with finding the right kind of kitchen and the right kind of kitchen units with storage in mind?
Okay, so obviously you'll choose some kind of kitchen designer, but again, it's taking it back to basics, because and I'm sorry if any kitchen designers are listening, but generally, of course, we talked about marketing in the last podcast, and people are trying to sell you things all the time. And of course, there are fancy gadgets in kitchens all the time that look amazing. Like, oh, I'd love to have a wine fridge. I'd love to have a little wine cooler. I'd love to have pull-out racks. I'd love to have a Le Mans unit. All of those things look amazing. But actually, sometimes it's just about keeping it simple. You need to do almost an inventory of what you've got or what you need, and say, right, and go through cupboard by cupboard and say, right, I need this 600 wide unit by one shelf for my glasses. Or if you've got loads and loads of glasses because you love to entertain all the time, you've got different glasses for shot glasses and whiskey glasses and brandy glasses and all these different things. You might need 2 shelves for your wine glasses. So this is about working through your kitchen step by step and saying, what do I actually need? Working that out, and then making sure when the kitchen designer comes round that you have got space for everything. In any kitchen, whether it's huge or not, there will be compromises that need to be made. There's very few kitchens where anybody has got spare cupboards. Yeah. So people pretty much use those all the time. And so it's important to think about shelves, think about what's going to be useful to me. Don't go for the fancy gadgets. Some things are fantastic. So a Le Mans unit, which is the pull out, I don't know if you've ever seen those. So a Le Mans is a kind of circular shelf that kind of whizzes out from a corner cupboard. So they make a fantastic use of a corner cupboard, but sometimes they can be quite restrictive because you can't use the whole cupboard. So I've got 2 corner cupboards in my kitchen. One of them has got a Le Mans unit in it and one of them hasn't. And so that was done by design. I recently had a kitchen about 18 months ago. And so it's all about fine tuning that. Think about, you're obviously into the right kind of food. You're going to have a lot of spices. You're going to have a lot of pulses. You're going to have all of those, and as soon as you go down a health route, there's more of that kind of stuff. Yeah. That's more difficult to store. It's more difficult to store than tins and those kind of things. And there's a lot of different ones, isn't there? All the different spices, all the different pulses and things like that. I presume that you eat pulses. I think that you do. And so you do have more, more nuts, more, more of the same, if that makes sense. So really think about visibility. So what you want to see is, right, I want all of these things at a height that it's going to be suitable for me, and accessibility. You don't want things stuffed behind something else. And so in my kitchen, I put in a pantry unit, which is fantastic in terms of visibility. So I get all the food into one pantry, whereas before it would have been spread around. So, and that's fantastic for you, Tom, as well, with your ADHD, to have that visibility and accessibility is going to be so, so important for you. Don't be scared of using labels as well. A lot of ADHD strategies are to take doors off kitchens and so that you can see things without opening doors. But that then comes at an aesthetic price. And so you've got to work out, if you are going to have open shelving, which is a great thing for ADHD, but you've got to be super organized for it to look nice. And so that's where the compromise comes in. Does that make sense? Definitely. So I think you can, so that's where a pantry is nice, because everything is in one big cupboard, or a cupboard with some drawers maybe underneath. You can label them up, close the door on the pantry, and all you've got to do is open 2 doors and see everything. So if you have the opportunity to get a sort of, I mean, like a tall larder cupboard, I don't mean a thin one, I mean quite a wide one where everything is in one thing, would be fabulous for your, to cover a lot of the things that you want to cover in your new kitchen.
That's all great advice. You're doing really well here, Leslie. You were
great. Good. Whew, this is hard.
Okay, so this is the next one, right? So we've got, obviously it's a very old house, so there's a cellar which currently hasn't got any, it's just brickwork. And over the years, there was a lot of clutter just thrown down there, big things the kids don't use anymore, bits of furniture that, will no longer be used. One of the hardest things we found was getting all that out and either donating it to charity shops or taking it to the tip. But it's now a nice big space that we think should be used for storage. How do people set their Stellas up to have proper storage? What kind of units do you use? How do you do your shelving? Have you got any tips for that?
Well, it very much depends on what you're going to store down there, and how. So is it going to be a dry cellar? So it's going to be dry. Is it going to be finished? It's
pretty dry. At the moment, we can decide whether we sort of put plasterboard in and plaster it, or whether we keep it just at the brick. But we're lucky that it's dry. There's not really any damp down there, so you could store things down there for quite a long time.
I mean, one of the things that we talk about quite a lot in the Declutter Hub is barriers. And so sometimes there are barriers that stop us from doing things. So quite often, a lot of people in this country certainly have, if you do have a cellar, quite often we'll put their laundry, washing machine, dryer and things like that and washing down in the cellar. And so, but sometimes if it's not finished, so if you've not gone to that stage of making it look nice and be clean, sort of like, I know it can be clean, but it's cleaner with plasterboard on and things like that. Sometimes it can be that sort of subconscious barrier that stops you from doing that, because it's a bit cold and it's a bit damp and it's a bit grimy. So we don't want to go down there to do that. If you can make it into a nice inviting space. And so my advice to you would be, if you are doing a full renovation, unless it's going to involve tanking the whole cellar, which is a whole nother kind of extra 20 grand or something, really try and make that space look as nice and bright and airy as you can, because then that takes away that barrier of it not looking great, and you kind of going, oh, I'll do that, I'll put it there and I'll take it down tomorrow when it's a bit lighter. Or, it's all these kind of things. It's like when people have things outside in their garden, we have to make compromises. We put things where we can put them, because not everybody's got space for everything exactly where they want it. But, that's where we see washing starts to pile up when there's a garden laundry or a shed outside, is because it's just this little subconscious barrier that's stopping you from doing that. So then we pile it up because we'll do it all tomorrow. And so really think that through. So if you can, it's probably worth the investment for you to make it look nice. Yeah. Make it look clean and dry and inviting, put some lights in there, particularly if you're going through the rest of the renovation, because you've got the people in the house and it'll just be one extra day, of their work. And then in terms of what kind of storage, shelving, keep it simple, keep it wide. If you then, so you can buy basic stuff from kind of B&Q, from Target, or from, I'm trying to think what it's called in the States, can't remember. The other DIY stores are available. And so just make it maybe like 12 inches apart, each shelf, and so you can put boxes in there. Labels are key down there. Make sure that you zone it very well, make sure that you keep all your garden stuff together, all your car stuff together, all your outdoor toys together if you've got those. really pull down on the number of paint. You're going to do a renovation, you're going to have all those paint pots. Are we ever going to use them again? Really think that through. So it's about wide shelving that's labelled well and can have boxes put on it normally, I would say.
That's great advice. That's where all my Christmas stuff will go as well, by the way, because that's what you gave me. You two, I've already talked about this, but Christmas decorations was always a chore for me. But anyway, that's where they're going to go.
So have you done the decluttering already, Tom? So you've decluttered most of that stuff out of the basement already?
Yeah, we've done a lot. I mean, it's been, and it is really painful, isn't it, when you're trying to get rid of items, some of which, if your grandma's given you something that has absolutely no function or anywhere to go, just letting it go is really, really hard, isn't it? So I would say between us, we've gone through the most painful process. And for me, second on my list, Sarah made me put this in, but she said, what are you going to do about all your books? And I've given a lot of my books to the charity shop, but even in what I think is a very generous act, I've got like 10 times more books than average, I think. So, but I think obviously the answer to that is either declutter more or make sure you have enough bookshelves in bits of the house where the books can be read and have function. And you can tell I'm being reticent asking these questions because I know what you're going to say because I've listened.
Yeah, you're literally answering your own question because you're scared of what my answer is going to be. You don't want me to answer it, do you?
No, I don't want to answer it. But go on, answer it. Tell me how to get rid of more of the book.
Exactly. It's an interesting one because we've not actually done a full podcast on books because it's quite complex from an emotional perspective, particularly for someone you fit the bill completely of someone who loves books and would consider them to be a collection. And so first things first, we have to take ourselves into a place where we admit that all books are not equal and that we have to break it down from that collection. So you're just like, but they're all together. Do you know what I mean? I love them all together and I can't get rid of my books and things like that. And so you'll allow yourself to take you to a certain place. But you've got to think about, so first things first, break it down and say, I can look at one book at a time and evaluate it as a single. That's the thing. That's the biggest problem that anyone's got with books. They view it, and people have got the same things with shoes or with certain kinds of ornaments or whatever that might be. Everyone's got a collection, and book lovers love books and like to view them as a collection. CDs, DVDs, all of those kind of things are the same. So take yourself to a place where you admit that actually you can go one book at a time, and there will undoubtedly be some that are more special than others. You don't have to get rid of all your books if you don't want to, but you need to know when that becomes overwhelming and when those books are stopping you from doing other things in that room that you want to do. And so that's the important thing about books, and look at them. Are they aspirational books, for example? So are there books in there that you're keeping because you think they'll look good? I'm not saying this is you, I'm just saying potentially that's the reason why a lot of people have got them. Be honest with yourself, a little bit of realism, self-improvement books, kind of joke books that we've been given. If people know that you love books, people will give you books as well. And it's about being honest about those books and evaluating one up against the other. You will undoubtedly have your favorites. Start to think about which books do I want to keep rather than which ones do I want to let go of.
Do you know what? That's really helpful. In fact, you have helped me over the years. I mean, I do now, books that don't have as much value in terms of what they've got to say. I download a lot more on Kindle now because obviously that's about space management. Although that's really because in 30 years I've had 3 or 4 book collections in various family members' garages, and they're about to return to the house when it's got bookshelves. So I need to work on that. That's the question I didn't want to ask you, but you give.
I know, because you were just kind of. I really, Sarah. So you already said. Sarah told me to ask this, then you asked it, and then you proceeded to answer it yourself and not want the answer I was going to give you. So I've done it for you, Sarah. I've done it for you. I've answered it. So you just need to watch now what goes on.
They'll all be grateful about that. Thank you.
You know what, Tom? I'm just going to go to a little break. I'm going to go to a break and then we'll come back. Is that right?
Okay.
Are you worn down with clutter controlling your life? Have you tried to declutter hundreds of times but get stuck? Do you struggle to even know where to start because every room has clutter? Come and join our free 5-day challenge starting on Monday, the 5th of September, and learn how to reset your home with us. Go to declutterhub.com/RYH to find out more and sign up.
So, Tom, have you got more questions for me? And are you going to allow me to answer them? This is the question.
No, I'm going to let you answer this next one, because I think I sort of know the answer to this one, but the great thing about this refurbishment is we're going to refurbish the bathrooms, and they need a bit of tidying up. We're going to have lovely showers with really nice warm water. But the thing that infuriates all adults when it comes to teenagers is what you do with your towels and what you do with all your toiletries, and how you keep all that sort of, in order without it spreading all over the place. Have you got any advice for how you can do that?
Towels is a tricky one. And it depends. Are you going to have multiple bathrooms, or?
There's going to be 2 bathrooms, yeah.
So 2 bathrooms, okay. I know in Ingrid's family, everyone's got a different colour towel. So that's what she does with hers. In my house, we use white towels everywhere, and they kind of got their own bathrooms. And so it's not really a problem. But ultimately, there comes a point at which you just have to either shout a lot or pick up after them. That's basically, I haven't really got any, when it comes to teenagers, I really haven't got, this is kind of more parenting than it is decluttering. And so you just have to get to a stage where, what's the easier solution? Is it to shout all the time and hope that it goes in? Or is it to just do a little reset of yourself and just pick a couple of towels up? My kids are quite good. I don't know whether you listen to the podcast, Tom, which I did with my own children. That might be a good one for you to listen to, actually, which was about their kind of what they thought about growing up with me in the house, which is quite interesting. But there are things that have gone in, you know what I mean? And so much as I'm like, oh, they're a nightmare, they're actually not a nightmare compared to a lot of children. And my standards are probably a little bit higher than a lot. And so they have taken those skills to their own houses, which is the more important thing to me, is they're going into their adult life with some kind of strategies that they know the way that it needs to be done because they've been taught it, and that's what's important. So I kind of let it go a little bit. So I'm sorry, I don't really have the answer to that question.
Okay. But then in storage, what kind of cupboards are good for bathrooms? Because you see a lot of really good looking designer stuff for bathrooms, but it doesn't look very functional to me. And we're at the point where we've got some choices there.
Okay. If you've got space, the long tall cabinets are fantastic because you can get everything in. You can get in the behind doors again. What you could do for your ADHD, for things to be more visible for you, is you could label, have shelves in there that contain certain types of toiletries. This is where the shaving stuff, this is where the toothpaste stuff goes, this is blah, blah, blah. And make sure those are labeled and containerized. Containerization is absolutely critical in a bathroom. So make sure you've got something that's got shelves that are good enough for you to put a container in. So, certainly in our bathroom, we have 2 sort of tall cabinets. So they don't go floor to ceiling, but they are probably 4 foot high. And if you can get those in, those are the best types of cabinet to have. The cabinets that are over your sink tend to be very narrow, so they're not deep enough to put loads of stuff. They're quite useful for some stuff, kind of medication, the odd toothbrush and stuff, but they're not good for deodorants and stuff like that. So the more storage you can get in a bathroom, the better, and the more containerized that storage is, the better as well.
Containerized, that's what I'm taking from this. Things that can take containers, and of course that's obvious, isn't it, when you think about all the little things that you can categorize in and then just stick them on a shelf. Okay.
Yeah, because it's just about rummaging. I mean, I'm not that meticulous a person. I just want everything to be in the right place so I can find it when I need to. I'm not bothered about it looking absolutely beautiful. As long as it's behind a door, then I'm fine with that. And so I think I'm happy to rummage. And so I'm not really a big folder of items. I'm more, as long as all those things are together, then I know where they are. And that's important to me. So I actually try and put solutions in place which don't involve a lot of effort. And I think containerizing anything, you can containerize in your kitchen as well. It's a fantastic place to containerize. If anything could go into a container, what that means is that you can lift it out and rummage and find. So it almost becomes a drawer. So if it's in a kitchen, that's why drawers are so popular in kitchens now. They have their downsides because crumbs fall into them. But in general, drawers are really useful for visibility and accessibility. So,
okay, that's very helpful. This last question is one of the ones that I didn't want to ask, but I've been told to ask. Right?
And are you going to allow me to answer it?
Well, I'm gonna wince in pain when you tell me. I've been told that I don't have a wardrobe, that I have a floordrobe.
Okay.
I try and explain that's because with ADHD, you need all your things, you need them nearby you because they don't exist if they're hidden, right? And unless you've got ADHD, people don't understand that. But we've got the opportunity of having new wardrobes in every bedroom. What advice have you got for two adults who find it very difficult to get rid of even clothes they don't wear anymore, and then kids who obviously are fashion icons and have a lot of clothes?
Well, it's really going to be dependent on the space that you've got, of course, as always. Can you have open wardrobes anywhere? Have you got scope to have it? I mean, if you've got 4 bedrooms, you're probably not going to be able to have a dressing room as such, are you?
There's a sort of landing area that's a big space that may end up with, they could have sort of extra storage, and the rooms are pretty big, so you can get quite a bit in there, I think, but we haven't even got to the system yet. I mean, when it comes to sort of collective action, clothes management, we've not had that negotiation yet. I have to do mine in my way, and everyone does theirs in theirs way. And what
feels like the right way? So what feels like the right way to you?
For me, it only works. I mean, okay, so this is going back to the first. I was sort of, as a joke, given that Marie Kondo book, which I'm sure a lot of your listeners will know. And I tried to spark joy or not spark joy when I touched the items, and actually managed to really get rid of a lot of my clothes. And it was quite good because I got rid of all my big clothes when I lost all the weight. And so for me, it really only works if I only have a limited number of clothes that I really like. And that's really me admitted to you that I'm very bad at storage systems. I've never cracked it. If I do it, I need a drawer that is only socks, preferably the same colour, because I can't match them. And then, pants in one drawer, t-shirts in the other. I can't mix and match. But I haven't got any further than that. And that's probably a mix of ADHD and just very bad organisation.
And perhaps you don't need, and so you've identified there what you need, which is I need things to be, again, it's kind of almost a containerization again. So you need all these socks together. You can have drawer dividers, and so that's possible. So if you've got big wide drawers in your new wardrobe setup, you can split those with drawer dividers, which gives you that sort of delineation between the two. So that's possible. Less is definitely more when it comes to ADHD, okay? And so the fewer things you have, the better that's going to be for you to kind of manage, So for someone with ADHD, the wardrobes need to be less full. We aim typically for about 85% full would be our kind of recommendation in a hanging rail. With ADHD, perhaps you need a little bit more space to be able to see things a little bit more clearly. In terms of the kinds of questions you need to ask yourself to get yourself into a frame of mind to offload some of the things that you no longer want, it's really looking at whether they fit your current lifestyle. So are they serving you well? Do they make you feel good when you open the wardrobe? And you will have a lot of residual emotions surrounding that with the weight loss journey that you've gone through. I have no doubt that you've looked into your wardrobe and I mean, how was that? I'm interested, but let me take a step back. How was that when you finally decided to get rid of your sort of clothes from when you were bigger?
Yeah,
How did you feel about it?
It was mixed emotions, really. I mean, part of it was when I was a politician, I couldn't buy off the peg suits, so I had to spend a lot more money than most people on suits that fitted. And I think I put this in the book, in downsizing actually might be the new one, but my friend Mark told me, he was an MP, he said to me, you're the only man I know who can make a £500 suit look like a £50 suit. And so it was kind of quite funny when I got rid of them and replaced them with off the peg M&S suits, which So there was a sort of almost like a ceremony where I just took a big pile off one rack, took them over to the charity shop, and then slowly replaced them over a few months. And it's a funny feeling. And then every so often I'll still, I'll find a shirt that's that I've missed, and look at the collar size and think, did I really? Because they look enormous on me now. They look like I'm wearing a tent if I put them on. And my kids helped me with some of it, and so it was a bit emotional as well, because they were very proud of what I did as well. So,
yeah, of course, absolutely.
But these days, I think because we kind of the house, we're getting the house ready to renovate. There's been no permanent solution to any storage solution, so everything is temporary, and we've known it's temporary until the house is done, and that in itself is quite stress-inducing, isn't it? When you've got a temporary solution to something.
I think that in general, what's really nice about going into a renovated property is that this is what a lot of people feel when they go in. They don't want to kind of tarnish it with loads of stuff. And so I think you'll find that a lot of that happens as a matter of course anyway. So you'll go in and you'll start to open boxes and go, why did we keep that? We absolutely don't want it. So just the fact that it's all brand new, you're going to go into a stage where everything is brand new. You've got this beautiful new wardrobe, got this beautiful new kitchen, and you will naturally pare down because you've got all the tools here, Tom. You know exactly what you need to do. Yes, you've got a few little things standing in your way, of course, that are a little bit, other strategies that you need to think about. But if you really think about that visibility, accessibility, compromise, think about the life that you lead at the moment. So that's another thing that I wanted to ask you, actually. Sorry, I'm turning it around and asking you questions. When you left your life as a politician, does your wardrobe that you have to wear now on a day-to-day basis look the same, or is it completely different?
It's completely different. In fact, lockdown added to that as well. So the other day I had, for the first time in 2 years, I had to wear a suit. And I was really grumpy about it, ironing the shirt, putting the suit on, trying to find a tie that matched. And basically now I can wear trainers, jeans and shirts and just get on with it, or running, go for a run and keep my gym kit on. So, yeah, it's really, really irritating trying to, and quite funny. I slightly worry that when we come out of lockdown, I might have to do more meetings where I've got to wear suits again, because it's like, I was basically wore a suit most days for 25 years, so I don't really want to do that again.
I think it's interesting because what we find quite a lot is that certainly for people who have, had a corporate life and then they've now retired, or they've had children, or they've had a change in circumstance, are quite reluctant to let go of a life that they loved. And so it's a psychological barrier there. Yours is almost in reverse, where because you had this huge positive change, a lot of people perceive that change to be not negative, but sort of different in some way, and it's something that's hard to let go of. So you've not got that. You're like, I'm happy. It irritates me that I've got to put a suit on, and so yours is almost in reverse. And so I think that it will happen as a matter of course, Tom. I think you've got the tools. Think about those emotions that are holding you back. Think about whether it's serving your current life. Think about the fact that that simplicity is key to the way that this is going to, how this is going to help you with your ADHD, and you'll be sorted. It'll all be fine. Wave a magic wand and it'll all be done.
Thanks, Leslie. You know what? That's good advice. And what I should say to you is, it's such sensible advice. You should try to be Prime Minister, because you could actually probably sort the country out. I'm not politician anymore. But.
Oh, dearie me. Yeah. I'm sure a lot of people who are listening to this will be laughing about that. But thank you for saying that. Amazing. So the last time we spoke, Tom, you were just about to publish, or your new book had just been published. So we're now sort of 6-7 weeks past that. How's it going? How's it going down?
Yeah, it's called Lose Weight for Life, and it's the second book of a health book I wrote. My first book was Downsizing, that talked about how I reversed type 2 diabetes and lost 8 stone, and a little bit about how I put it all on in my early years. But I ended up getting lots of letters and emails about it, people wanting more practical advice. So it's a kind of blueprint for how you do it, and it's a positive way of dealing with all the challenges we have in the middle years, and how we try and keep fit and healthy, and stay bright. And I've had a really good response to it. So far, so good. And I think people really like it. And more importantly, I hope it's really helping people on their own health journeys.
Fantastic. And where can people find out more about you?
You could probably Google me, and what you find, half of it is true and half of it is written in tabloid newspapers. But if they want the books, they'll find it on all the, on Amazon, Waterstones, in all good bookshops. And it's even been stocked by Sainsbury's. So if you're doing the weekly shop, you can get a copy of it in Sainsbury's as well.
And what's your website, Tom?
My website is tom-watson.co.uk, I think. But
you have to think about that. You have to think about that one.
Google Tom Watson.
That needs to roll off the tongue there, Tom.
I'm terrible at one. But you can get me on Twitter at Tom_Watson, or I'm on Instagram at Tom Watson Official. And there's all sorts of discussion talk, and I do a weekly newsletter if people want it. We call ourselves, with a little group of us, we call ourselves the Persons of Positivity Club, because we support each other on things like accountability runs, and we do a little bit of charity fundraising and try and keep each other happy and bright.
I love that. Persons of Positivity. A bit of alliteration in there as well. I love a bit of alliteration. It's right up my street. I know. I really don't want this conversation to end. I feel like this is not your last run on the podcast, Tom. So I want to know how the renovation's gone. So maybe in a year or so, we'll come back and we'll talk to you again.
That'd be kind of, I was thinking of inviting you and Ingrid to come and see the new kitchen when it's done, but I might feel too much pressure.
We would love to. A little trip out.
Perfect. Maybe a special podcast from our new
Yes. How cool would that be? Yeah, on the road. Ingrid and Leslie on the road. We talk about a world trip, but we can go. UK is fine too. So thank you so much for spending your time with us on both of the podcasts. They've both been fantastically insightful. You've shared your journey, you've shared a lot of things about your life that perhaps you've not shared before, and we feel privileged for you to have done that. I've absolutely loved the conversation, and I want to wish you all the best with your fantastic career as an author, speaker, what other things? Not a politician anymore. I'm sure you still dabble. Do you still dabble?
I try not to. There's nothing more ex than an ex-politician. I try not to get in.
So thank you so much, Tom. Let's talk about next week's podcast. Next week, we're going to take it back to basics again. We're going to do a 10 things podcast that we love. It's 10 things to declutter from your linen cupboard. So Tom, hints and tips in that. Listen out next week and you can declutter your linen cupboard. The towels might come into there. We'll talk about which towels to keep and which not. So thank you all so much, everybody, for listening, and we'll see you all next week.
Thanks so much for listening to the Declutter Hub podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to us in your podcast player so you don't miss an episode, and we'll see you next week.